Oliver, we are back again. It hasn't been long, so some of the people who
No?
are watching this might realize that there is another case study interview, client interview that we did, and that was only 2 months ago. Things have changed a lot. I think there's one core reason why things have changed, but I actually want to dive back into a few of the other elements of what has enabled you to get to where you want to be. But just before we dive into all of that, could you just give another introduction, explain a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go from there?
Yeah, cool. So, simple intro is I'm a high ticket closer. I've been doing it for uh almost 10 months. Wow. I was gonna say almost a year. I thought no, it can't be almost a year now, but it is. Since April last year, we're on Feb now. So, yeah, started on a pretty tricky offer, of course, and have kind of wiggled my way up from the bottom to being where I am now. Gone through a lot of trials and tribulations along the way. Obviously, if you for those of you watching who saw the last client interview, you'll know the tipping point was joining this program. But yeah, things have really kind of leveled up as well in that last couple of months. Two,
Yeah.
it's kind of there's been two jumps really in a relatively small period of time.
Yeah, and for anybody who's not watching, just to give a little bit of context on Ollie's journey, because I mean, you've really put your head down, you've really worked hard to get to where you are right now. But if we go back to when you were first getting started in sales, I think in May you said that you had like 99 calls and only closed 2 deals, which if we compare that to where you are now, like that just it seems impossible that would take place.
Yeah, 99 calls, two deals is bang on. That's exactly what I did in May. I remember all too well.
But part of it was down to the offer. And again, I'm going to say the same thing I said in the other, interviews. We never blame the leads, but there
No.
is there is a factor involved where, different offers are going to have different difficulty levels. But you did well, right? You went from probably hovering around a 6% sales conversion rate on that previous offer up to 25%. And
Yeah.
now since then you've jumped onto a new offer, got yourself up to 46%.
Yeah.
Technically, we're rounding it up. It's 46.75, so 47%. And I expect you're chuffed about that. But just before we dive into kind of the new offer, I think at least one of the biggest things, and the best things for me to see is with that previous offer, you probably collected just in excess of over 100K working on that offer over the last 6 months. But this
Yeah.
month alone on this new offer, you've done 70K cash collected, which is very nice feedback.
Correct.
But what I wanted to get an understanding of was, I guess, the transition that you've made from when we last spoke, where I think you were still probably in a stage where you're using the scripts. The scripts are really the thing that are kind of driving you forwards. Whereas now it seems like you have a very complete understanding of sales and it's more relying on the soft skills, trusting your own intuition. So, how do you feel like that previous offer helped to prepare you for the offer that you're on now?
Yeah, great question. So I think there is an element of kind of going full circle that's happened. If we just go all the way back to when I started on my first offer back in April last year, I think a lot of the skills that I'm using now to close deals are similar to the same kind of skills I was using then, just a more refined version. So what I think really what's happened is, I had my rocky cutscene phase from April to September last year. So April to August without support, just doing it myself and just really struggling. And then of course since April having your support and the program, implementing everything religiously, following it all to a T, being super, super focused on doing it by the book, right? Like everything that was being taught in the program is how I did it. Even stuff that isn't in the program that I would join the coaching calls and ask you about, like it was all tailored around how you orient like your calls and how you recommend doing it all. And that immediately yielded results, right? 60 days from like August was 0% conversion, September was 20. I mean, it's like quite literally infinitely better. And then obviously that maintained as well. And I think, I got really focused on using the scripts and the processes that you gave me. Um, And by doing that, by being obsessive about it, and by getting like really internalizing it, it allowed me to kind of, I guess what I said to you the other day, find my own style now, which is in the beginning, I had what I would say is my own style. It just wasn't very effective. But then with the use of your like the scripts and all the like all everything we do in the program, that allowed me to kind of take my own style and refine it and make it like implement it effectively, which of course yielded immediate results. But then now what's kind of happened is I've kind of come away from the scripts. I've come away from the processes. I'm not reading stuff off my screen. I'm not being super strict on the process, but I am getting the best results I've ever got. And I think I am the best closer I've ever been. And it's funny because when I joined the coaching calls with you and it's like, hey, I've not really been using the scripts. You're like, I almost expect you to be like, what, what do you mean you're not, using the scripts, but actually you're like, yes, exactly. Right. It's not meant to be like, you're not meant to live in that little box. They're tools which are fit for purpose, right? And it's about knowing when to deploy them. I think, of course, in the beginning, you're more like, you want to follow the process, you want to be more strict, you want to do things, but over time, you can kind of adapt and learn like how to kind of be more fluid, right? It's just like MMA or just like boxing, in the start, you stand still, you do a jab, you come back, you do a jab, you do a cross, you come back. Like boxers, you don't see a professional boxer just stood there doing a jab. You see them floating around,
Yep.
Positioning, and it's the exact same way. There's a certain like rigidity, would you say, like a
Yep.
rigidness
Yep.
that you have when you start following the processes, and it's important, but you got to learn to relax, and then that's when you start finding your own style. And I think that's really what I've like leaned into this last couple of months and been able to see the best success despite actually being closer in many ways to how I was doing things before I even joined the program, which is kind of crazy. So
It's so strange because I've seen this happen with multiple people. Everyone is exactly the same. We come into the product, everyone draws the scripts religiously. From doing that, they lose a little bit of confidence because they don't feel like they're being themselves. And also,
mm,
they don't really know the scripts. And so that knocks their confidence a little bit. Then they
yeah,
get to the stage where they know the scripts, they feel super confident on the calls. Then they get to the stage where it's like, I don't actually know if I should be using the script, and they've got the competency, they understand what they should be doing, but they're doubting their intuition. And then they go
yeah.
to that final step where it's, I know when to use it, I know when not to use it, I know how to flesh out my own scripts, my own analogies, all of those different types of things. And that is really when you're in the pocket, because you just understand how one the call should go, but also if somebody says this, they say this, you can kind of even preempt where the call can go. And that's where we
Yeah.
dive into lateral thinking, all of those types of
You've
things.
got the map, right? You can, it's kind of like you see, pretty much every road that you could go down. So you don't feel stressed like looking into the unknown. You just feel like, yeah, like you don't have to try and take the conversation a certain way, because there's an element of confidence that comes from knowing which way the conversation is coming, or going, sorry. And when you're being strict about it and when you're being rigid, you kind of want to take it a certain way. So you have the like security of I know where we're going. But when you know every way you can go, when you totally relax, it's like, yeah, it's cool. We can go that way, we can go this way, because you're not going to be taken by surprise, because you've just got, it's very, very clear what's coming. It's just a case of like waiting for it to come and then just, following protocol, right?
So I want to, and we obviously spoke about this the other day in a bit of detail too, but I wanted to dive into the soft skills because ultimately that's where I really think it comes down to. The scripts will help massively in the starting stages, but what you really want to know is the soft skills. And I believe
Yeah.
that's why you've done really well, other people have done really well. But what would you say are, I guess, maybe the top three soft skills that have enabled you to get to this stage? It doesn't even need to be three, but the top things that have enabled you to get to this stage where you actually understand how to navigate the call, control conversations, etc.
Active listening, active listening, and active listening. Like that is just not, that's not even a joke. Like it is genuinely just active listening, because active listening is the one thing that informs everything that proceeds. Like after that point, right? If you are not listening, like if we just take it to the extreme, if you are not listening at all, you are not going to be able to have a successful conversation with a person, right? And I was talking about this the other day. Sales is just under the umbrella of communication, right? It's just a style of communication. It's like almost like an art of communication within itself. So if you were in a conversation with someone that's unrelated to sales and you are not listening to them, you are not going to have a successful conversation. People don't like that. Think about any time where you've been distracted or someone's been talking, you've been talking to someone and they're on their phone or something and they're not paying attention. It's like you are not listening, and that is the worst version of that is awful, like to be ignored, right? So if you think about the other side of that spectrum, what is the best version of that? What is the positive side of that? Which is if someone is 100% engaged with exactly what you're saying, like to a T, they're asking you questions you've not even thought about. They're asking you such good questions. Oh my God, great question. Like, yeah, God, you really are listening. Like, funnily enough, my grandma springs to mind for this. If I call my grandma, I tell her what I'm doing. She has questions, and I'm thinking, God, like you are listening to what I'm saying right now, and that's why I love talking to her, right? And it's the same, and she's my grandma, and I love her, of course. But like, it's the same principle. So if you're on a call with somebody and you are listening to them truly, everything that goes like you're gonna have the right questions, you're gonna be able to say the right stuff, you're gonna connect with them emotionally, like with their like struggles if they're telling you about that, which we might touch on as well in this conversation. So it has to be that active listening. Of course, strategic questioning can follow that. And I guess I am joking by saying active listening times three, because obviously you have to follow that listening with something, but listening gives you the information you need to ask the right questions. And when you ask the right questions, you get the right answers and you can listen more and then ask even better questions or make even stronger statements and connect with them and take, like, again, like the map we're talking about before, like knowing where the conversation's going. When you're asking them questions and really, really, when you're listening, it's kind of like the roadmap is just revealing itself to you. You're
Yeah.
seeing, okay, where could this go? You know?
It's really interesting. There's a few different
Yeah.
things. First one is because I think when you jumped into the product, one of the areas that you struggled the most was with being concise and talking too much, right? And
Still do.
you've but now you talk, but it's impactful. Do you know what I mean? Like you're not
Yeah.
wasting your words. And I think a lot of people have this misconception that sales is about talking. It's about me making statements, conveying my point all of the time, whereas it's the complete opposite. It's you should only speak when you have something that's actually going to move the needle. And so
Mm.
you going again on that, that journey of making that switch from being somebody who's focused more on the side of talking to understanding that the listening piece is super important, is huge. I want to also bring up being client focused because for me, I think that's the root of everything. Because if you don't care about the prospects, like actually care about their situation, want to help them, it can be extremely difficult for you even to get into that stage where you want to listen to somebody as well. Okay, cool. So, kind of pushing forward from there, I want to talk a little bit about limiting beliefs, right? Because the journey
Mm.
that you've gone on is, again, a prime example of you being able to break those limiting beliefs. When we jumped onto our initial sales call, you said to me that you'd be over the moon if you got to a 20% sales conversion rate. You didn't even think it was possible to get to a 20% sales conversion rate. Here you are now, 46, 47% sales conversion rate. So, what was going on? On that journey, what was going on mentally that allowed you to break down some of those barriers and get to the position that you're at now?
I think it's just a simple case of actually doing it, right? Nothing breaks a barrier more than you breaking the barrier,
Mhm.
right? It sounds ridiculous, but if it's like the 4 minute mile, isn't it? Like, second people knew it's possible, everyone started doing it, and it's like so that there's only one way of knowing something is possible, and it is by actually either seeing it or doing it yourself. No better way than you actually doing it, right? And when we had those initial conversations and we were talking about your previous offer and how like the similarities between what I was doing and you were telling me about the numbers that people were doing, it was so like for anyone listening, you spend 5 months like giving it everything, 6 7 days a week, really trying to improve, and not really getting anywhere. And someone sits across from you on the phone and's like, yeah, like you can do, like we can do triple that, quadruple that. It's like, Can you though? You know, like you know the person you're talking to is competent, but it's like I get you, but I don't think you actually understand my situation. But the truth is that that was like that was on me, right? That was a belief. I held such a strong belief because I had so much evidence to support that that was true. But the second I started following the program to a T, and that like the second I started to see my sales conversion rate actually climbing and me closing deals. I mean, before that, God, I never did more than one in a row. But I remember there was times it was constant. I would do two in a row, three in a row. And I'm like, three in a row? I mean, if it was 6% conversion rate, the chances of doing three in a row, it's like it's like pick a
Yeah.
number between 1 and 20 and then try and guess that right three times in a row. You know what I mean? It's so unlikely. But then we got into the point where it was like, yeah, I was on a roll. And it was like the second I saw the end of September close off after that 60 days, like, the first 30 days of the program, me learning everything, having a tough month still, implementing everything by September, and then seeing it go to 20. It was like, well, it is actually possible now. Yes, the leads are pretty like bad quality. Yes, it's tricky. Yes, the retention is tough. Yes, there's all these problems, but it was like objectively speaking, 20% is achievable because I actually did it. And then from there it was just that's why the standard stayed. I didn't drop, it was like 20. It was like every month was like 6, 10, 2, 0, and then it was like 20, 20, 25. It just got higher and higher. And I think yeah, it just takes knowing that it's possible
Yeah.
to really believe it, right? Like you could have told me a million times that it was possible, but until I actually did it, then like that's the only time where I was like, fine, I agree, you know?
I think another factor that contributed to this, and especially in these early stages where you were still struggling in your first month, was seeing other people do it as well. When you jumped into the product, the community is there, and
Yeah.
you're seeing other guys closing at like 20%, 30%, 40%. And it's like, well,
Oh yeah.
why are they doing that? Why can I not do it? Clearly, it is possible. And even you can still hold that belief around, well, the leads are this, yada, yada. But at a certain point, it gets to a stage where it's like, I don't know if that's actually justified. Okay, let's push the conversation a little bit further forwards. You don't have to reveal this if you don't want to, but I'm interested to know. Obviously, it's end of your first month on the new offer. In terms of earnings, now what does that look like?
Sure. So I think I'm more than happy to talk about it because, I mean, if it's like I want other people to understand that it's actually like genuinely possible. Like the money I get paid today, the money hasn't hit my account yet. So until that barrier gets broken, I don't ever believe it. But it, like there's a couple things you mentioned earlier, right? You touched on it. So I took a 6 month slice of my last offer where I did 93K cash collected, and that was April to October. Now, this was an info product which had people would go on payment plans and it would be recurring. They dropped off a lot, right? I mean, Jack, you saw my spreadsheet, you saw the red, just the fields of red, people dropping off, right? So I closed like way more deals, like deal value than I did actual cash collected. But ultimately, we both know cash collected is what the most important thing. In fact, it's one of the opening things you say, cash is king, right? Not close rate, like 46% close rate, awesome. But cash is the key here. And I think I did about 113K cash collected over the 8 months or something, or 9 months I was on Alex's offer. And just name dropped in there. Sorry, Alex. Anyway, this month one, brand new offer, and this is recurring commission. So this is not just one and done, right? This is people who will, like, not everybody, but people will convert into the recurring commission because it's a one-time setup offer with the ideal of continuing to manage it like after the first 30 days. So it's not like there's 0% chance they're going to convert. Like we're targeting like even just 1 in 3 people converting. We've crunched all the numbers. I mean, it's really like we've been pessimistic, and month one commission was 7K USD. So that's about 5,700 British pounds. Now, I'm not gonna embellish it too hard. We had to give two people a refund for one reason or another. There was a mistake on my part right at the start. I told someone they were a good fit when they weren't. There was like we had some issues with like one client in the middle. Bit is breakage, right? So that was my gross was 7K, net is about 6,400, so still 5,200 British pounds, which is by far the most I've ever earned in a single month, like ever, right? No matter what I was doing, which is amazing. And we're just getting started. This is just the beginning of the recurring commission. So yeah, I mean
So I actually want to dive
insane.
into that because I think that's the most fantastic thing about your offer, right? It's one is you're doing really well, right? You're putting your head down, you're performing, you're getting the job done. I know that the founder is exceptionally happy with your performance, but your earning potential is huge. So in terms of
Oh yeah.
projected, even with you just holding the line right now, what does that look
Yep.
like in 3 months' time, 6 months' time?
Yep. So the best way to work it out, and I've worked it all out, and I've had to do the maths like 3, 4 times to like sober up and like, okay, are you sure about that? Like, is this really gonna happen? Um, it's really simple. So the way to work it out is how long do people stay on average? How much do they pay on average every single month? And then it's going to take that long for all the recurring commission to materialize, right? So it's like if people stay on average for 6 months, it's going to take me 6 months to build up my like recurring pipeline to its peak. As it stands, that number should be, and if we've been like very pessimistic, we've not been crazy about this at all. We've taken all the numbers from I've done in January, so we've used real numbers and then pessimistic projections, and it should sit somewhere in the 15 plus K USD a month range. So British pounds, it's like 12K British pounds a month. I mean, it's six figures, right? And it can go higher. I mean, we've been pessimistic. We're looking at the lowest ticket price with this. We've got upsells, we've got different offers. We're expanding, like we're doing different services. So there's some people who will be on retainers where they're like 6, 7, 8K a month. We've got someone doing 10K a month, and it's like closing that person's like $1,000 a month of recurring commission. So
Say,
we, we've looked at all the numbers and been really like we're trying to stay very measured about it, and I'm trying to just keep my head in the game and just be like, not focus too much on the 6 months out and just make sure I'm closing deals now. But everything is teed up to be, 15, even 20K a month.
Yeah, so by the sounds of things, especially if you're working off of pessimistic numbers, and I don't want to go to the complete opposite end of the scale because I think it is good to be measured. But even if we're
Yeah.
just working off of what you estimate to be a baseline at the company rather than being pessimistic, it looks like you're going to be tracking for like 20, 25, maybe a little bit more K a month, which is life changing. And that's kind of the direction that I want to go now. I think another thing that I have taken a lot of enjoyment out of, just from a personal standpoint and being the founder creating this product is the goal that I had with this is to accomplish what's happened with you, what's happened with other people. I feel very confident now to say that you will never, ever, 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 ever be in the situation that you were before. It's going to be impossible for you to ever be broke. It's going to be impossible for you to never, make good money. Realistically, you will always earn bare minimum 6 figures now moving forwards. But
Easily.
yeah, what I'm interested to know is obviously finances is great, but what doors do you feel like have opened up to you as a result of you improving your skill set and becoming, I think, a sales demon, right? Elite at closing.
I think there's that means a lot coming from you, Jack. Jack, thank you, genuinely. There are two doors I think it's opened, and I think both are equally important, right? You've got the opportunities, both are opportunities. One of them is like financial, and one of them is like non-financial, and I think both of them are just as powerful as each other, and they feed into each other. Obviously, it's opened up the door to making loads of money, right? You know when you said the other day to me, you said you were like, "Hey, you'll never be broke again," and it was such a weird thing for you to say to me because I hadn't thought that. I hadn't actually gone. I hadn't really thought it. You know what I mean? I'm just doing this stuff, and I thought, damn, that's so true. Like, if tomorrow the guy whose offer I'm on, just turned around and was like, "You suck," like you're fired, like quit. I'd be like, all right, no worries. I know I've got some. I could find something solid that I could just move straight onto. It, that's not going to happen, obviously, because I'm crushing it, and he's very happy. But it's just if whatever happened, I just know that I'll always have something like that. It was such a strange feeling. I'd spent all this time I've messed around with other online business stuff and trying to make money online, and it was like, damn, just being good at sales means like you can earn six figures a year, and that is actually a lot of money. And I know a lot of people talk about like, oh, they want to make 1 million a month and stuff. Six figures a year is you're in a very good position, even in an expensive country, right? I mean, God forbid you live in a cheaper place, like, and you can, right? Because it's fully remote. Most of the sales stuff fully remote. You can go anywhere. You can sit in Thailand for like $500 a month and make 20K a month. Like, that's definitely a possibility for anybody. So, I think that's one thing, the financial side of thing, and also, of course, the doors that improving your skill set opens financially for you, like you, Jack, right? You're years ahead of me and you have now got your own info product business. You got you're mentoring people. You have all the financial, very similar to what I was just saying. You've got the financial benefit of like actually making money, but also you've got the opportunities benefit of meeting people and stuff, which I want to come on to. So it's just a case of like your skills go up. The higher your skills go, the more money you make. And I think on the other side of it is the more skilled you are, the more money you make, the smaller the pool of people there is who are on that level, which means you start to meet people, you inevitably rub shoulders with people because there's only so many people there. And like you were saying the other day, it's like it's like living in a village,
Yep.
right? Being in this space. I know you, like there's people. I'm one connection away from some serious people, like serious people. I mean, even if we just take Charlie, like you could just be like, "Oh, this is my good friend Oliver," like, and like, and introduce me, and it just that's crazy, right? I mean, this is somebody who's gonna be a billionaire. Like, what? That's insane. And just from learning how to say a few words on a Google on a Zoom call,
This is the
like
thing that
what the
I,
hell?
and again, I'm biased here, right? Obviously, because I work in this space, but this is the thing that I think is so powerful about sales as well. Because yes, it
Mm,
helps you with the making money, all of that type of stuff. But beyond that as well, even if you decided not to do high ticket, right? You still have a transferable skill that every single business in the world needs.
yeah.
Even when it comes to the 100K thing, yes, everybody wants to make more money than that. But if you just continue on this journey, regardless of whether it is from I continue to do sales perspective, you find better opportunities like you have already done, you're going to get to that mil mark. Or if it's,
Yep.
I become fractional sales manager, I create my own product, I develop my own business. It's an
Literally.
integral skill set. But the other part is kind of looping back to what you're talking about networking, even just in day to day conversations, being able to use these soft skills, being able to subtly guide conversations, create opportunities, all of that type of stuff too. It's huge.
I've got to add on that, which is there's not one person like ask anybody I know, and you can ask them 6 months ago, 12 months ago, they say, Ollie's confident, Ollie's outspoken, I'm someone who's not afraid to say what they think, how they feel, right? But still, I say this with no arrogance. I think I am one of the most confident people that I've ever met. I'm happy to like. I think an element that comes to being a bit like mental, to be honest, a bit neurodivergent. But I always have like felt like I can speak to people and be confident. Yet still, my confidence has transformed over the last 6 months. It's surreal. I'm way more confident now than I was 6 months ago. I feel way more self-assured. I feel way more like even my goals that are nothing to do with this, I feel more confident attacking them. And it's very weird because I wouldn't have imagined that that would be the case. It's like I thought it was more like, yeah, I'm outspoken and confident, and I'll just do I'll just add some scripts in there and I'll close deals. But it's actually totally transformed like me as a person and made me more confident like with everything I'm doing. I think one of the things is like as well, just want to touch on like because you because it's one skill because it's one thing you're trying to improve at. It makes it straightforward. It's like all I got to do is get good at sales, and I've won this game of sales. With an agency, for example, it's like, you got to do sales and service delivery and marketing and oh God, it's a nightmare, right? And some people are built for that. I'm not. I'm better. Like I'm a focused kind of beam of attention rather than like I don't like managing all these different things going on at the same time. So yeah, I think that it's just I don't know, it's just such a powerful skill, and it is just transcends every area. When I'm talking to people, like talking to my family, talking to like my girlfriend, talking to my friends, like people are saying to me, like I'm seeing people, they're like you seem like you know you just got a good like there's just good vibes coming, like you seem confident, you seem like you've got your shit together, and yeah, I just think that sales is massively to thank for that, right? It's communication, it's just a form of communication.
Yeah,
So yeah,
it's
it's cool.
interesting because it reminds me a lot of the gym. When I first started going to the gym, it was just I'm gonna get muscles, I'm gonna get big. But the whole
It's just
mindset piece, the discipline that came from that
yeah.
was just completely unexpected. And it's the same thing with sales. You get into it and it's like, I'm gonna make money, well, but you get so much more out of it than you expect. Okay, cool, pushing in the direction then of kind of wrapping this up. I asked you this question last time, so the answers may be the same, but I'm just keen to understand now that I would say you're in the position where you fully understand, what is going on in terms of high ticket sales. What are the top three things that you got out of the product?
In no particular order,
Yeah.
meeting great people. You know, there was a period of time, like especially like post, like Rona and everything, where I didn't really know many people. I had a 9 to 5, and I didn't really like it. Didn't really like the people there. I'd moved away from home and stuff. Felt a lot quite disconnected. And like just after the coaching call the other day on Friday, I got like my DMs were like flooded, people messaging me, and I felt emotional because I thought, wow, like I feel like I actually have got people and like a community and like friends that I actually gel with properly. We're all doing similar stuff, not just people I've kind of got to put like a mask on to have a good time around. Like people I can really be myself around. I think that is one real benefit.
Mhm.
Um, we all want that solid like group of like brotherhood, right? And I do think there's no community I've ever joined that has a better like it feels like everyone is like properly tight knit. And it was fine when there was like 6, 7 people in here. Of course, it's going to be tight knit. But even now, as you're expanding, like it's not lost that at all. It has not even slipped a little bit. So I think that's one thing. Making money, right? Instant gratification, just putting money in the bank account, right? Let's just cash money entering the account is obviously a massive benefit. Money buys time, and I want to talk more about this in the future, especially to other people in this program, about what you should spend your money on and about how you should use that. For me, I've been taking that money and I've been saving it, I've been investing it, not in weird stuff, not in like meme coins. I've been putting it in a very boring high interest savings account. I've been investing in MMA one-on-one coaching. I've been investing in like essentially in improving myself and and stuff. I've not bought a Rolly, not that I could have done yet on that previous offer anyway, but I'm not it's not lavish to me. It's about it's sales is a tool for making money, and then money is a tool for unlocking everything else, right? Unlocking a life that you actually want to live. And the more money you make per hour, the more leverage you've got, then the more freedom you've got. And this has just dramatically increased how much money I make per hour, which has given me more freedom. I could work half as much now and still make, like we are saying, like I could work half as much, make 10K a month. Like what? That's crazy. Because if I can do full-time 20K, then that's possible. So yeah. So the first thing is the community. Second thing is the money. Third thing is opportunities, right? There's a certain element of just like I just know, as I'm transcending like where I started, not knowing anybody. I know you now. I think like I would say you're my friend. Like you're beyond just being somebody who's coached me. Like we get along. There's people that I in other circles, like the offer owners I've worked on, right, who is like, those are my friends, like they're inviting me out to go do cool stuff. And that's going to mean I meet other people as well. And it's just that access to opportunities. And it's like, oh yeah, that's the guy who closes, like he's a demon at sales. Like that's the guy who crushes it. People want to know, like, oh, like, what, they want to talk to you. They want to ask you questions. They want to pick your brain. Maybe you could even provide them some value in exchange for something from them. There's my PT. He my PT, I don't even pay him. I just give him help with his high ticket sales, like for his coaching, and he just does all my programming for free. Like it's so there's so many cool things. It's like doors open that it's open for me that I didn't even expect as well. So I think that's pretty much it.
I want to dive into that piece because, again, it just comes down to the network thing. And I think in this space, that's where it's really interesting because if you have something of value to be able to offer to people, they want to talk to you. The fact
Mm.
that you're good at sales, it will get you in conversations with people making 100, 200, 300, 400, 500
100%.
if they have issues around sales. And
It'll
then,
position you as an expert with those people as well. So it's not
exactly.
like the people making 300K a month will be
Yeah.
sat next to you like, can you help me?
Help me.
Right?
Yeah, help me,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is insane. Which is insane. Okay, last two questions.
Yeah.
Is again, I asked you this last time, but if somebody is sitting on the fence and they're like, I don't know if I should do this, right? And I can understand where that comes from because especially even if we look at your situation, investing the capital, getting started, like it can be
Oh
scary.
yeah.
But if somebody
Terrifying.
was sitting on the fence and they're unsure around whether the product is going to help them, whether they should back themselves and take that leap of faith, just
Mm.
honestly, earnestly, what would you say to somebody in that situation?
I would tell him this. I would tell him that when me and you had a conversation for the first time, I'd spent 5 months in the worst, making the least money I'd ever made. And I just, despite that, just cleared my credit cards, just escaped that feeling of like actual anxiety over my shoulder about money every single day. And even knowing you, Jack, even knowing your reputation, even knowing that you were a great, like, you were the perfect guy to help me with what I was going to do, even then, I was still, should I do this? Like everything was laid out in front of me to like for it to be a good idea, for it to make sense, and I was still nervous because I was like, I just got my money right, I just figured out, and I had to go into credit card, like I had to put money on my credit card to do this. I remember we had that first call, and I remember like we talked through everything, and I was totally sold, and I remember it was just a case of, if I'm going to do this, I had the cash to pay you, but then it would meant that I had to put like my food that month, I had to put other stuff on my credit card, and I didn't want to do that.
Mhm.
But I knew it was the right choice. I knew it was gonna yield results, and I backed myself when like to fight my way out, regardless. Even if it all crumbled and it was terrible and it was useless and it was no good to me. I knew I was like, I have to take this shot. And 60 days later, my close rate was triple. It's like cool. Like 2 months later, I'd triple my close rate. 6 months later, I'm in a six-figure role. What about the next time me and you have a conversation, Jack? What's that going to be about? Like, how much? What am I going to have to bloody brag about then? You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be next time me and you sit down and have a conversation, it's going to be, Ollie, you did 20K this month. Like, do you want to tell everybody? Do you remember in that last time when you
Yeah.
said it was 15K plus and we were being pessimistic? We were being, we were talking, it's like, it's going to be 20K. It's like, so let's just say that conversation happens in 5 months' time. Let's just say it happens in 6 months, which would make it exactly a year from the day I joined the program. If you knew you could spend a couple, a few grand, right? And 12 months from then, you would be making $250,000 a year, guaranteed, right?
Um,
Would you, and I'm sorry, and make everything in between on the way?
yeah.
Would you take that? It's like, I think I'd probably take that bet. And I didn't even know that coming into this. I was I didn't even have an Oliver testimonial to watch before going in this. Like to be like, okay, cool, this is gonna work out. You know, so I think, yeah, it's an absolute no-brainer. I mean, everything that we've touched on, everything we've done, it's just I've spent about 10, soon to be 11K on mentorship and courses over the last 12 months. And by far, this is the one that moved the needle. Like I've paid for four things, and this is the one that really changed the game for me. Everything else had its part, but this is the one that actually, like, I can say this did that clearly. So yeah,
And I just want to provide a little bit of context to people who might be watching at this
if they've
stage.
made it this far,
Yeah,
if they're
if
still
they've made
tuning
it this
in,
far, is
podcast.
I can understand from an outsider's perspective how it all just seems a little bit unbelievable, right? It's like really you're able to do this in this period of time, yada yada yada. But the thing that I would say is one, this comes from the context of me taking thousands of calls, right? So everything has been drilled. But the second thing is the depth of the information. I from a personal level, just in terms of integrity, and we talked about this the other day as well, how your reputation in the market is so important because it's
So
just,
important.
but just from a personal standpoint, I couldn't create something that didn't go into that was just surface level. It had to have that depth because if
Yeah.
you come into my product, this is what has to happen. It has to
Yeah.
happen. And so that's why, Ollie, other people have been able to get these results. Okay, very last question, Ollie, and it's open-ended. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to, but it would just be, is there anything that you want to bring to the table that perhaps I haven't asked you about?
There is one thing actually, yeah, and it's something you touched on way earlier in the conversation, and it's I actually had the realization mid-call with you now, which is we talked about starting, being strict, implementing everything, seeing results, then kind of transitioning into being more relaxed, and then finding your flow. Now I'm about to start being strict again. And I think it's not like one time, it's cyclical, right? You go round. And I think what I need to do now is now I've found that flow, found my style. I think it's time for me to drill the basics again, to come back all the way around and to start following the processes I was in the beginning. I've already started implementing more of the scripts in my sales calls over the last couple of weeks, like especially over the last 7 days, doing more to like stay with the process that was following before. And I think, well, I know for sure I've already got it planned out. My plan now going forward is to get strict on process again, to get strict on following stuff again, because now it will be in addition to what I'm doing. It
Mm,
won't be forced. It will just be intentional.
mm,
And I think there is a difference. So I think that it's one thing to nail the scripts and nail all that, and then to find your style. But you'll know this, right? Experts, the people who are the best at what they do, they're masters of the basics, and you've got to come back to the basics. You've got to come back round. So that
mm,
is what I'm going to be doing moving forward. Like, and we've not even discussed this, right? It's just going back, like watching more, like watching sales calls religiously again, watching one of my sales calls every single day, drilling the scripts, having them up on the screen, following the process, bringing my calls to the training sessions. Really just dissecting things, because it's like, well, if I can do 46%, as I am, not even being a little bit loose on process, who knows what the next level is for me? Because I've got my eye on 50%. And I think that is going to be the thing that moves the needle, because that's only one or two more deals in a month. It's really not that much of a big difference.
yep.
And I definitely let a couple slip through the net in Jan. So I see no reason why doing that won't yield even better results. And then there will come a time where I'll do that again, I'll relax again, and we'll keep repeating that process iteratively, right? It's like an upward spiral. That's all.
Beautiful. Well, look, bro, I appreciate the time. I said this last time, I'll say it again. I'm very excited to see what happens next, but I'm sure we'll
Yeah,
touch
me
base
too.
again soon.
Yeah.
All the best, brother.